Hello, I'm AK Benedict, and you are listening to the Sirens of Audio.
Incoming message from Cyber Control. Decoding. Message received. Harry Sullivan is an imbecile. Huh?
G'day audiophiles, you are listening to the Sirens of Audio and you're watching it too. This is the podcast that explores the universe of Doctor Who in the audio medium. My name's Dwayne.
And my name's Philip. G'day Dwayne, g'day audiophiles.
G'day Philip. What an exciting episode we've got today. Our first chat with a member of Torchwood.
Yes, it's been a long time coming getting to Torchwood. We've done lots of other bits and pieces. But yeah, the first of many Torchwood episodes coming up, I'm sure.
It is about time. So, because that monthly range, as I've said a few times before on the podcast, I went off Torchwood a little bit, but I was brought back in and I've been going back and looking at some of the monthlies that I've missed and some of the most recent stuff. I mean, James Goss has been delivering month after month. Has he written everyone this year? Pretty much.
It must almost. It feels like it's been everyone. It's him again this month.
I think he's probably one of Big Finish's most versatile writers, particularly with Torchwood in this format. It's an incredible thing, and it's great to be able to have Tom Price on today a little bit later. But you know what? I think I usually about this time see a rabbit hole, but I can't see one today, Philip.
Oh, really? No rabbit hole, Dwayne?
No rabbit hole.
Oh, okay.
So what I thought I'd do with you is have a little chinwag about Torchwood, the TV series, because I don't think you and I have actually spoken too much about it and what our thoughts on it are, whether we enjoyed it, whether we didn't. So I'm curious to know your background with Torchwood. Were you excited when this spin-off came out in the first place?
Yes, when I heard Torchwood was coming out, I was very excited. The cast lists looked amazing, particularly Indira Varma, who I really love. And that was all a fake. Russell faked one of the cast members and all her bio and everything, and she was as big as anyone else. And then he killed her in the first episode, scumbag.
He did bring her back for one.
Yes, and she's been back on audio too now, which is even better. Yes. She's amazing. But I was very excited to see it, and the cast looked amazing. I've always loved Captain Jack and John Barrowman. So when I first heard, I was excited. What did you think when you first heard?
Yeah, I was excited as well, because that whole arc with the hand and with that potential of him coming back, with him being resurrected by Rose, what was happening with that? There was a lot of mystery about Captain Jack in that first series. It's like, what? That we didn't know. There's a lot of established history now that we didn't know at the time. So I was very, very curious about that. As for the more adult storylines...
I was going to say, so what did you see when you first started seeing it? What was your impression then?
Yeah, I was a little bit... I knew it was coming, but it still took me aback. So this is the Doctor Who universe. It's still very obviously the Doctor Who universe, but to get that in a more adult format... I mean, they didn't swear a great deal throughout the early TV series, so that I can remember. But they did that first F-bomb that they dropped. It was like,
this is for the first few episodes.
This is an F-bomb in the Doctor Who universe. So it kind of struck me a little bit as strange. But yeah, I could accept it for what it was. That it was that sidestep away from Doctor Who, and I actually really enjoyed the first season, and there's a lot of stick for some of the one episode in particular gets a lot of stick, and that's Cyberwoman, and I actually really enjoyed that episode. I did at the time. I've gone back and looked at it. I can be more critical now, but I can say honestly at the time I did like that one.
Which one?
Cyberwoman.
Oh, someone. Oh, that's atrocious. That's the worst episode ever.
Well, yeah. So you say, I've got to say I did like it at the time. It's not. I mean, Torchwood is not a series I go back to on TV very often. I think I've looked at a couple of episodes if they might be related to something we're recommending on the podcast. I'll go back and look at something on BritBox or something like that, but I don't dig the DVDs out very often. But yeah, those first 2 seasons in particular, I really enjoyed it. I loved Martha coming back in season 2, so that was really good. What was your impression of all the characters? They were quite different characters to get used to in a Doctor Who universe.
They really were. I mean, I thought they were introduced really well. I do think the first episode that Russell wrote was typical Russell. It was brilliantly done. I did find that a bit too much blood and just a bit too much swearing in that first episode, and then later
righto,
on,
Dad.
Well, it was over the top, and I think Russell would admit now that they were trying to make a mark, and they probably overdid the sex, the blood, and the swearing to start with, and then they worked out actually the show didn't need that. I mean, it wanted to be adult, and I've got no issues with it in part, but it was just over the top. But that being said, it was still a brilliant idea. That first episode, I still think, is a classic episode of any TV in terms of introducing characters and introducing Jack. And it's shot so beautifully, and all the scenes of Jack on top of the buildings. Wales has never looked so beautiful. Cardiff has never looked so stunning. And when I took the family over to Great Britain recently, we went to Wales deliberately to spend time there because it was such a lovely place. It's part of what we did. But I really enjoyed season 1 and 2 a lot, and I was disappointed that they didn't go for a third full season. But certainly, Children of Earth, that third season that they did, that in over 5 days, is an emotional, devastating piece of work. I don't think I've ever been quite so shell-shocked by a piece, or maybe the last episode of Blake 7. But in terms of shell shock, is amazing. What do you think of Children of Earth?
For me, Children of Earth, yeah, I really enjoyed it. But it was like, I can't describe it. Kind of twisted me up with all these unusual emotions. Like, I really loved it. It was compelling. It dragged me in, but it was like almost bitter as a piece of entertainment for me. It was really, really dark, and it was, very shocking, I guess. This is the one where Yanto dies, right, at the end of it?
Yanto dies at the end of episode 4. There's still another episode after that.
Right.
Where, no spoilers, but there's a pretty awful ending for some of Jack's family.
Yes.
It's
been a long time since I've seen it. But, yeah, I really enjoyed that one. When Miracle Day came along, I really tried to get into this, but I did not enjoy Miracle Day. Perhaps it was to have all those American characters in there. It sort of took away a bit from the authenticity for me. And it seemed really long and drawn out. Even though it was 10 episodes, it was less than the first 2 series. But it was a single story. It was really, really long, and it seemed really drawn out to me. And I just didn't enjoy it. I've not seen it since I first saw it all those years ago.
I thought Miracle Day was very clever. I thought the concept behind I'd never thought before, what would it be like if no one died? And then you actually saw, if people didn't die, it would be awful. Like, death is important in our world, and to have no one dying, what would happen to the population? What would happen to all sorts of issues? What I thought was just an amazing thing to explore, and as only Russell could. I like the fact that the story was actually still quite linear, because it was 10 episodes. But you had, all of episode 2 was set on a plane trip. And, the entire thing was on a plane with a couple of scenes backwards and forwards. But really, that was where the action was. There was a whole episode that was all set in the past. So it was progressive storytelling. And I enjoyed the scale. The fact that Torchwood was beyond just Wales and it was actually global. I enjoyed. So, it wasn't as strong as the first couple of seasons. It was different. It was, once you bring that American money in, it did change the feel, but I still loved it. Yeah,
You did?
Torchwood, yeah, I did.
Okay.
I think Torchwood was a very, very clever show, and explored some amazing themes, and was able to give you creatures and baddies that Doctor Who couldn't do. I mean, the whole I forget, it was 2047 or whatever the number was in Children of Earth for the alien. The concept of an alien that doesn't want to invade you but just wants your children because they get high on your children as a drug. It was sort of truly awful.
It's pretty heavy, isn't it?
Russell, what sort of brain do you have, for goodness sake?
Yeah, but
the world's a better place with Torchwood.
Then came along the audio adventures, and I really got into those first monthly releases that came. Were they monthly at first, or did they just release a few to test the waters, and then they came out more regularly after that?
That's right. Yep. They brought out 6 in the first block, so they sort of did a season of 6.
Yeah.
And another season of 6, and then since then they've been monthly.
Yeah. And then they've done a few audio seasons. So they've done Torchwood season 6 and season 7. And I think from what I've heard, there's even more that have been written, but whether they'll get done down the track is still to be decided. So the monthly range is still continuing with those small. They're almost like companion chronicles, aren't they? But they're full cast. So full cast in that they are like two-handers.
4 or 5 people.
Yeah. They are really, really inventive. And like we said at the outset, James Goss is probably the lead writer on the Torchwood range and does an incredible job.
I love how Torchwood can explore things in very different ways, but also its style can keep changing. And so you'll have the horror, then you'll have comedy, then you'll have bizarre. You're never quite sure what you're going to get. And once again, the characters are just so important. And so you just keep seeing this play with characters. But, once again, they've introduced their own characters along the way. You've got Queen Victoria now as a major figure who keeps reappearing. You've got the Samuel Barnett character, which Norton. So they've introduced people along the way, and now they keep coming in recurring now.
Then
and also
got Torchwood 1 as well.
Torchwood 1 with Yvonne Hartman.
Yeah.
That's
been interesting too. All right, well, that's interesting to get your thoughts, and based on that, I might have to go back to Miracle Day and give it another assessment, I think, because it's been a long time since I've seen it, so you've kind of swayed me.
Well, I think we should have a chat with Tom Price. What do you think?
Sounds good. Let's throw in a trailer of one of his episodes of Torchwood, and we'll be back with him in just a moment.
Good morning. Mind if I join you?
What? Coming soon from Big Finish Productions. Torchwood. Ghost Mission.
Sgt Davidson?
Andy, please. My friends call me Andy.
I'm Norton Folgate, Torchwood Assessor. Here's my card.
Torchwood has business cards.
They did in my day.
Huh?
I've been appointed to see if you're ready to join the new Torchwood.
What? Gwen has finally decided to let me in.
This is a day all about you. I've been sent here to assess you. I've come all the way from 1953, so you may have to fill in a few gaps.
1953?
Well, that's just how we do it sometimes. Guarantees impartiality. Also, it means I can't interfere. I'm... well...
Oh my God, you're a ghost.
2016, yes? You have holograms and nano printers, don't you?
Yeah.
And a ghost, he says. Open mind, Sergeant. Now then, ready?
Actually, I quite fancy the loo. Can I just...
Tough. Test due to start in... now.
Big Finish. We love stories.
Sgt Andy Davidson, we are on.
Tonight we have with us actor, stand-up comedian, radio presenter and podcaster Tom Price. Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, what a pleasure to be here. And tonight, and yet it's not tonight at all. It's very much this morning. It's 9:33 in the morning with me. I've just dropped my kids off at school, so I'm elated.
Well, it depends when people are listening. So we can't expect everyone to be turning on at 9:33 in the morning for them, or for us it's 8:33. It depends on the world where you are, I guess. So, g'day everyone, welcome.
Hello and welcome. When is the best time to listen to a podcast? It's the evening, isn't it? It's an evening thing.
Oh no, my family time's evening. I tend to do it when I'm walking in the morning.
Oh, yeah,
my
that's
main.
good.
But yeah.
Commuting.
You're a podcaster. When do you want people to listen to you?
Yeah, I am a podcaster. I do a thing called My Mate Bought a Toaster, which is all about Amazon shopping history. So I guess I want people to listen to me just constantly Philip, constantly. I need the numbers. I want people to be playing. I want people to buy a smart speaker, put it in their spare room in their house, and just have it playing My Mate Bought a Toaster constantly.
Well, I would have jumped your numbers up by a couple today because I've been listening to.
Yes.
I did listen to a couple of. Julian Clary one was hilarious, and I was listening to one with a couple of teachers as well. So I've been listening to your. Can I just say where did you get the idea of asking people for their Amazon history?
Yes, well, I would love to tell you that it's an idea that I had myself, and I'm a genius. But my wife, she worked in TV format development for 20 years, and she came home from work one day and said, "We've had this idea, and no one wants to do anything about it. What do you think?" And I was like, "Oh my god, that's a podcast! You get the thrill of logging into a celebrity's Amazon account and just being able to idly browse through their lives is like nothing else, and it's funny. People." Guests just spontaneously laugh when you say, "Why have you bought," Julian Clary, for example, 36 door wedges, door stoppers, the little triangle. "Why have you bought those?" And he's like, well, I've got OCD, and the flower pots on my wonky windowsills weren't straight, so I've had to use the wedges to straight. And you just end up in these wonderful moments of autobiography, and it's just an absolute joy. I love it.
But have you ever found stuff that they wouldn't want you to tell? I mean, have you ever found stuff that you thought, you can't talk about that?
No, honestly, no. The most tricky moment has come a couple of times when people have had stuff they bought with an ex, and they're sort of telling a story about something they got up to with an ex, like things they used to do with an ex, and it's not that they feel like it's not their story to tell. It's not right that they should tell the story about an ex. So that's happened a couple of times, weirdly. But in terms of anything rude and stuff, no, it's just not happened. Everyone's very open and happy to be honest. I think it's part of the course when you do the podcast. You know that there's going to be a bit of that.
Yeah, it's been it's a brilliant format, and as I said, I've been listening to a few episodes and just laughing and stuff like, Julian Clary being into real life murders and horror. Dreadful, evil stuff he's into.
He's a bad man.
That's weird. Yeah.
I mean, when you say he's into them. Exactly. There you go. That's why I want my listeners to think, good, I'm not the only person who loves murders in real life. There's all these things you find out about people that are just, whether it's Julian Clary being a bit murdery, whether it's Alex Horn from Taskmaster is obsessed with hot tubs. All these things that, he's never talked about any of that in an interview before. And I spotted that he'd bought hot tub cleaner on his Amazon. He was like, "Oh, Christ, you've got me." And he didn't want people to know that he had a hot tub because it's seen as very decadent to have a hot tub, and he wants to be a man of the people. And now I've cracked him wide open, man. I'm like a tabloid journalist. I've got him. I've skewed him.
Okay, so we're hoping to crack you a bit today.
What's the most unusual thing you've bought on Amazon?
My Amazon purchase history. Well, I did do that as a Christmas special one year. I think the weirdest thing I've got, it's probably the greatest hits of Britney Spears on DVD.
Oh,
I'm honest.
That is quite weird.
It's quite weird, yeah. I just bought it because I really liked Britney Spears. I just used to sit and watch it on DVD.
Well, she's been freed this week, so that was good news for her.
Exactly. Now she'll finally get the royalties from my purchase 20 years ago.
About time. So, listen, tell us a bit about your past. Where did you grow up? Because you are Welsh, is that correct?
Yeah, I am Welsh, and Torchwood fans will know that from the Welsh accent, because it's a kind of a natural Welsh accent. I grew up on the border with England, where everyone really, the local accent is kind of like a hybrid of Forest Dean, which is English, and like Newport, which is obviously South Wales. So there's this weird kind of local accent. And I was in, how can I put this, the right side of the tracks. I'm a posh knob. I went to an all boys boarding school, so I had any Welsh accent beaten out of me by teachers when I was younger. So I don't have a natural Welsh accent, but I grew up in South Wales. Yeah, just by I would say a mile and a half away from England.
So I'm assuming never learnt Welsh?
No, we didn't do Welsh in schools. Elsewhere in Wales they do, but not at our school, no.
Oh, you'll be too old for that now.
I know, my brain won't have the elasticity to learn a new language. It's a shame, isn't it? But Welsh is a beautiful language, and loads of people are taking it up. In fact, there's a TV programme where loads of Welsh celebrities start speaking Welsh. Maybe I should do that, because it would be great to have it, and it's more and more popular. It's as popular as ever.
Now, as I researched you a bit, as I said, I introduced you as actor, stand-up, radio presenter, podcaster. Those seem to be the four things you're doing at the moment, but you're doing all of them. Which one would you say is your number one?
Oh, I don't know, Philip. I can't decide. I think whatever I'm doing, I love acting. I really, really love acting, especially doing Sgt Andy. I think just the chance to, and the one common thing that across all of those different side hustles is just I love crafting good stories and good jokes. I love a good joke. I love writing a good joke. I love making a joke land as Sgt Andy. I love performing a joke on stage. I love doing a link on the radio with a good joke. I love talking to people and connecting with people on podcasts and making good jokes there. So I think the satisfaction of just finding a funny and making it land is the one thing. So in answer to your question, I like all of them equally.
Like my children.
Yeah. Oh no, I've got a favourite child. No.
Oh, don't we all? We don't admit that. Okay.
Well, I would say I don't have a favourite child, right? But at any given moment, I can tell you who my least favourite child is.
I let my children play it out. They can all win my affection and be my favourite if they want to be.
All right. Yeah. Good.
Make it a competition. It's good.
Yeah. It's good for them.
There was one thing that stood out to me when I was looking up a bit of info on you too, was that you once did a pilot for a UK remake of Bewitched. Is that right?
Yeah. I played the boyfriend to Sheridan Smith's version of The Witch. I've forgotten her name now. And Frances de la Tour was in it. Joe Tricini was in it as well. Yeah, it was done in front of a live studio audience. And it was crap.
Really?
It was really,
cast.
really crap. Great cast. The script was... I mean, it's not the fault of the writers. It was a process where... This is going back 15, 16 years now. Just so many executives were involved and meddling with it and trying to make it as mainstream BBC One 8 p.m. as possible that it just lost any edge or any jokes or any... Yeah, it just didn't work. It did not work. And it was such a shame. And we were waiting to hear about whether or not that had been commissioned for about a year. Just kept hearing, no word yet, for ages and ages and ages, and eventually... I mean, technically, guys, I still haven't heard, so there's a chance.
It could
it still might get away. Yeah, fingers crossed.
So at that stage, Sheridan probably wasn't as big as she is now.
Oh, she was still pretty famous. She was in a show called 2 Pints of Lager and a Packet of Crisps, and she was famous for that. So she was very, very well known and much loved. She certainly wasn't the scale that she's got to now. She's like national institution level now because of her formidable talent. I mean, she's unbelievably good. But back then she was a very famous, well-known actor. Yeah, but now she's kind of a level above that.
With your stand-up shows, the little bits I've seen, you come across really natural, just like storytelling. It almost feels made up on the spot. I'm assuming it's really tightly prepared and written. Yes.
Well, some stand-ups go on stage and they write their material on stage. They walk up there and go, I've got this vague idea about the noise a washing machine makes. I wonder if there's anything in that. And they've got one half observation about it, and then they stand on stage and they kind of riff. And I can't do that because I'm an absolute coward. That's the main thing. You know, in order to be a good stand-up, you've got to learn how to die on stage. And those guys are very good at that. They will go on stage and they will stink it out and get funnier through pain. Funniness through pain. But my decision is to do the painful process at home alone where no one can see it happening. And I write it pretty tightly at home. Pretty tightly.
So how do you know something's funny?
That's a good question. Gigging, doing lots and lots of gigs, and I've done fewer gigs in the last couple of years because kids and my radio job, but I have, you have to just go on stage and stand there and throw things at the audience, metaphorically speaking, and you start to work it out. You do enough gigs, we're talking 4, 5, 6 nights a week for 10 years, you develop a almost supernatural ability to know what an audience will and won't like, and that stays with you for life. I still now know. I just know. I will always know if something's going to be funny or not. I don't have any doubt at all, and that is from years and years of stand-up.
So you obviously have writing experience. Have you ever thought about writing drama?
I would like to, and I've been asked to write some stuff for Big Finish, and I will get around to it eventually. I find it very difficult. I've got ADHD, so I find it very difficult to sit down and concentrate and get something done. So I am always sort of battling that at the moment. But it's something I would like to do. But I find, you know what though? I find writing dialogue. I can think of plots and I can think of jokes, but good dialogue is so hard to make it land, to make it sound natural and make it compelling. And the Big Finish stuff is. People like James Goss, they're just amazing at it. They make it seem so effortless. Absolutely brilliant.
James is a freak. He's month
He's a
after
freak.
month after month, he's just
He's a
producing
freak.
these amazing stories. I'm just thinking, I don't know how he's doing it. It's
And if you look at
bizarre.
him on Twitter, he seems to be living in Turkey, in some sort of cave in Turkey at the moment.
I've missed that. But okay.
Yeah, he's living in a house that's being renovated and it looks completely run down in Turkey. That's where he is right now.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So, as a child, I mean, I wasn't going to ask you whether you had ADHD, but listening to you, I was suspecting you may have done.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because your energy levels and your vibrance, which is both the blessing and the curse
Yes,
of
yes.
the situation. So, as a child, what was it known? Was ADHD known when you were a kid?
No.
Or it's-
No, not really. No, ADHD is still seen as this kind of. It's still seen as a rather cliched sort of misbehaving. Oh look, butterfly kind of thing. You know, there's that sort of there's that kind of misconception about it, and it's not like that. It does come with high energy, but it's just an inability to focus and concentrate, and 1,000 thoughts sort of bombarding you all the time. And it's something I've only really cottoned onto in recent years, to be honest. And one of the things when you go through a process of getting diagnosed, one of the doctors who do it say, "Can you send us your school reports?" Which is obviously like the idea of someone with ADHD finding the concentration and time to go over there and get that thing done and open up the box, or go home to my mum's house and open up the box, and like it's just never going to happen. Your brain's just spinning out the whole time thinking of something else. But I've managed to do it, and an important part of ADHD diagnosis is that you've always had it. So it's not something that started when you were 30 or started because you've got a phone and you're always looking at your phone. It's something you must always have had as a kid. And all my reports just have to feature the word concentrate and attention. Like, it's unbelievable. Going right back. And it's not like I did badly at school, I did fine at school because I sort of battled through it. But they all say he would do so much better if he could just sit still, if he could just concentrate.
I taught for 20 years.
Right.
So one of my big focuses was boys' education and ADHD, because I think out here in Australia people got onto it a lot earlier, and often the first reaction out here is just to drug people, and
Yes.
my reaction was always to try and avoid that, because I actually thought we could find other activities to stimulate them, to keep them moving, because I was always sometimes some people need it. If you need your medication, take it.
Yes.
But there are other things that you can do that can occupy you. And I just found said the boys will run around the oval, and often the principal would say, "What are they doing?" I said, "Oh, they just need a run." And then they'll come back
They
and they'll
need
do
it.
some more, and that's what
Yeah.
they need. And doing
Well, this
things
is
like that.
Yes, this is exactly right, and it's also it's very, very hereditary as well. I've got two boys, and my eldest has definitely got it as well, and he just has to run it. He's eating, and he has to stand up and run around the kitchen before he eats. And he's 9 years old. This isn't a young 3-year-old crazy thing. He's 9, and it's what he does. And I've been reading up a lot about it recently, and I saw one beautiful video on Instagram. There's loads of great accounts that talk about it, and there's a lot of ADHD awareness in this country now. It's landing, it's arriving, and you're right to talk about the medication thing. And I don't take medication for it personally, and I know it does work for a lot of people, but there are ways around it without medication for me. But one of these Instagram accounts described it as a superpower. And I think that's wonderful, because it's a superpower. And this is what I'm now getting to tell my child. Instead of me, when I was a kid, I was really told off a lot. People with ADHD learn to hate themselves. They really do, because you are not comfortable, because you're told externally by all the adults in your life, stop, sit down, why are you doing? Like, really, there's real anger, and it's a real abrasive conflict. And to now be able to say, this is a superpower, it's a thing you've got. It's okay. Sometimes you are going to annoy people. Don't worry, it's not you, it's this thing. It was lovely. It was a nice moment to be able to say to my 9-year-old, this is a superpower, this thing. Don't worry about this. This is gonna stand you in good stead. So I'm very grateful for that.
Definitely. So, how did you get into acting? Where did acting fall into your life?
Well, I started wanting to be an actor when I was probably about 6 years old, and I watched my brother in a school play. And I remember the girl he was on stage with, I can't remember what the play was, didn't know any of her lines. All the parents there, and they were like 18 years old. And when you're 6 years old and you're watching, no, he was 16, he's 10 years older than me. And when you're watching these kids who are 16, that's adult world to you. I was in the professional theatre. As far as I was concerned as a 6-year-old, I was watching a professional show. And she didn't know any of the lines. And she just the whole time going, line, line, and she was just getting cued, getting prompted throughout the whole thing. And I could sense the awkwardness, and I had this whole kind of cocktail of intoxicating cocktail of, wow, look at my brother, he's so cool on stage. Yeah, I idolised him, so that's cool. The thrill of knowing that all the adults in the room are finding this excruciating, I could tune into that at 6 years old, so I found that incredibly thrilling. And also thinking I could do this better, which is something which motivates a lot of people, I think, in acting and comedy. They watch someone and go, this is great, but I could do this better. Or here's what I would bring to the table. And at 6 years old, I remember very distinctly thinking, here's how I would do that. So that was it. From that point on, I started talking about wanting to move to London, to go to drama school in London, which I didn't do in the end, but I talked about it all the time, and it was all I wanted to do. That was it. The end. Done. No other thing is ever. Still at 41 years old, it's just too late now, obviously. But that's it. Done.
So you had lots of different bits and pieces in acting jobs. Like
Yeah.
you've got a pretty large selection of shows you were in. But at the whole time that you're doing that, you're earning a living through stand up. Is that your main moneymaker?
Yeah. Stand up has done all right for that over the years. Yeah, it's a bit like a day job at night. So that's good. And there's all sorts of, you have to build a kind of portfolio of side hustles. So I do voiceovers and I do adverts as well with acting, which can be quite good. Stand up, and then radio came along as well. So all sorts of bits and bobs, yeah.
So how did PC Andy come along?
Wow. I was doing a sketch show called Swinging in the UK on Channel 5, which was quite a low budget but really good fun comedy sketch show about relationships, and it involved all sorts of random scenarios, which many of those sketches would now be thoroughly cancelled, but it was a lot of fun, and we were sort of filming 8 sketches a day. It was insane how much we were filming, and we were completely frazzled. And this is back in 2005 or 6, and it's what I had grown up doing. I'd done sketch shows at Edinburgh. I knew how to do sketch comedy, and I loved it. And then I got an email from my agent saying there's a Doctor Who spin-off happening. Do you want to go in for it? And I just, yeah, fine, okay, Welsh, fine, great. So I went in the waiting room. I realised it had to be, proper natural Welsh. So I decided to do an impression of my ex's dad, a man called Lionel. So I thought I'd just do him. And it was with Andy Pryor. And I just went in and did these couple of scenes which I'd learnt. But it's because I was in the middle of doing this sketch show for Channel 5 that I didn't have any time to get nervous. I didn't have any time to get distracted, the ADHD thing. I just kind of went, right, fine. I fell into it because I was so exhausted from doing this other show. I just gave a really good audition, which can sometimes happen. All the noise clears. You're just pure. And you just go, boom, there you are. That's what I do. And I just presented this version of him. And off the back of one audition, I got it. And that was that.
Now, at the time, was it just going to be 1 or 2 episodes?
Yeah, at the time it was going to be in one series. He was going to be in 3 episodes at the beginning, and then I believe they were going to kill him off either at the end of the first series or maybe the second series. There was a plan to bring him back in and kill him off. And thank God for Russell T Davies. I mean, I'm not the first person to say thank God for Russell T Davies, but really, it's just like I have ludicrous levels of gratitude to that man. He said, no, let's keep him going. There's something in this. And I think that one of the things I brought to it was there's a thing that happens when you have when directors come and you have different random directors directing the show. It's not always the same person for the whole thing. And some directors, in the early days of a show, will look at the cast and say, that's my core, those 4 people. And these people, like the random policeman, are peripheral. And I don't really care. And I'm not going to give them any effort. They're not going to do rehearsals. We're not going to talk about their character. We're not going to work out chemistry. And then along comes an actor like Eve Miles, who knows that every single scene has to have belief and meaning and depth to it. Even a scene with her, easily two-dimensional kind of character. She's like, no, we need to make this a thing. And I remember filming a scene on a bridge with her for Adrift, I think, and she gave it so much thought, and I was like, I couldn't believe how much effort and kind of depth she was giving it. And I obviously followed enthusiastically and got this chemistry with her. And then also there's just a couple of moments where I just took the piss. I just gave a bit more from Andy, like shrugs and moments and just a bit more life that a director in the moment directing that show would go, yeah, fine, okay, fine. And it would sort of end up by stealth in the show. And then people, those little tiny shrugs, those are the things. They're tacky, they're sticky, those little moments. An audience will grip onto those and they'll go, he's that guy, I like him. And the character didn't need to do that. It's not written to do that. But if an actor brings those little moments, you can suddenly, luckily, find it snowballing and then you become a bit more substantial. And I was very lucky. It was a very important learning curve, that.
It was interesting because it was a cast of, amazing talent in terms of the actors, but all the characters were pretty unlikable in different ways. I mean, you still found things you could relate to and you wanted to follow them, but they weren't likable characters. But Andy was actually someone that you liked. He was sort of the main...
Yes.
If you had to choose someone to go over beer with, it'd be Andy you'd go over beer with, because he was actually the one having the fun. And as I said, a bit goofy, a bit... I guess you were the everyday perspective of everyone in the audience watching, but actually having fun in it.
Yeah, I think that, if you look at the Doctor Who format, there is always a companion who does that, who goes, what is going on? And actually, that core group of Torchwood, that was missing. That wasn't there particularly. I think luckily Andy just fitted that slot. So I think it was, it worked for the show as well as me bringing stuff to it. It was an important kind of, just gave it a bit more reality, because that's what's so good about good sci-fi. The things that make you think it's definitely real. And there are some sci-fi shows that come along, I've seen a couple on Netflix recently, that are so sheened and don't have any depth, any humour, any kind of flaws like that, any little moments, any idiosyncrasies. And they're to use that stickiness analogy, they're Teflon. Nothing sticks. They go. There's nothing interesting. You want it. Let's go with the saucepan analogy. You want sticky, you want tacky, you want a bit of the last meal you had stuck to the thing when you start cooking up a new episode. You want stuff to retain and remain. And that definitely happened with Andy.
Had you followed Doctor Who much before you started Torchwood?
Yeah, I remember I was presenting a show on BBC Three and during the start of Doctor Who and Strictly in 2005 when they brought back Strictly and Doctor Who. So I was very excited about it then. I loved Doctor Who as a kid. I've told this story several times before. Peter Davison, who obviously was my doctor, and Sylvester was mine as well. But Peter Davison and I were in a radio sitcom together before any of this, back in 2002-3. And Peter Davison introduced me to my wife. So Doctor Who was already a very important part of my life. I was doing this sitcom, and there was a very, very, very gorgeous girl who was the friend of someone else in the cast. And afterwards I said to Marianne, this person in the cast, I was like, who's that girl? And she went, oh, that's Beth, that's a friend from university. I was like, oh, she needs to come to the show again, you need to invite her again. Because I was like, when you're doing a radio show, you sit, when you're not in your bit, you sit on the stage and you face the audience. So I just spent the whole time looking around at the audience, and there's this girl, I was like, God, I really fancy her. So she came back to another episode, to another recording, but she was on a date. So I was like, no, Marianne, when I said get Beth to come back, I didn't mean bring her back with another man. That's not you've missed this entirely. So afterwards, after the show, we're in the bar, and all the cast are at the bar, and we're looking over in the corner, and there's this girl who I fancied, and she's talking to her date, and suddenly the date stands up and goes to the toilet. And I was like, oh my God, she's by herself. And Peter went, right, onwards, team, let's go. So he gathered the troops, and the whole cast of this show. It was a big, full bar. It was the last show. It was the wrap party, basically. We all stacked it over to her table where she was sitting by herself. So suddenly she's sitting there, and she's surrounded by the cast of this thing she's just been watching. Peter sidles up to her and says, who are you here with? And she said, oh, I'm here with this guy. And Peter said, no, you should be here with Tom, and pointed to me. And and the rest is history. We now have 2 kids. So it's thanks to Peter Davison, basically.
Gosh. Okay, so originally you weren't sure how long you're going to be before they're going to kill you off. How much influence did Russell actually have in creating Torchwood and in terms of your roles? He's only credited for the first episode, for the first 2 seasons. Was Russell overseeing a lot of what was happening? Do you know?
Oh yeah. Oh, what, with Torchwood?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, he was the showrunner. It was totally his. Yeah. Everything, pretty much everything that happened came from his brain, as far as I understand it.
Okay. So, what was Chris Chibnall's role then? I thought Chris Chibnall was down as the showrunner.
Hey, I think. So well, hang on, wait. So Russell was the showrunner for Miracle Day, right?
And Children of Earth.
And Children of Earth, yeah. So, oh, I see what you mean for the first 2 series of Torchwood. Oh, I see. Yes, that is a good question because Russell was doing Doctor Who still at that point, wasn't he?
He was.
Right. Yes. So, well, I couldn't speak to. I think that you can certainly see that when Chris was doing it, I was in a few episodes, and then when Russell started doing it, I was in a lot more. So I'll let you do the mathematics there.
Okay, that was a part. You were talking before about the fact that Russell saw something in you. I was just trying to work out how much he was. I
think he liked. We got on really well. I think he liked. Well, you can get on with Russell, and it doesn't mean he has to give you a part in something. But I think he recognised, from a writer's point of view, what Andy brought to the party, and was like, "Yeah, I need that." So that fits.
Great. What was it like doing Miracle Day? Were you actually working in LA? Was there only?
Oh my God, so good, so good. Like. Yeah, just get these moments where you're standing there going, appreciate this. I hope that everyone has this moment in their life where they go, right, just really enjoy this, you absolute lucky wanker. I was flown out to LA several times, and on the Universal lot, standing in my Welsh policeman's uniform, walking past Conan O'Brien being filmed. I bumped into Russell Brand, who was an old mate from comedy. That was hilarious. Went and looked at the Friends studio, lived in Hollywood for a few months. It was insane. And this is all from a random audition with Andy Pryor years ago in the middle of doing a sketch show about sex, and suddenly I'm here in Los Angeles. It was insane.
So special moments.
Yeah, special moments. I love LA. I've been back a few times. I absolutely loved it. I love the weather. I love the people. I love the opportunity. I love that, you go and hang out in the office and people are saying you should go and meet this producer. You should go, and people always take the meeting, and people always say, oh, LA, it's very false. It's very fake. It's all hot air. Yeah, I mean, sure it is. It is all hot air. It's all, there is a lot of that, but it's still, there's just this basic building block of enthusiasm, this basic unit of, I want to hear your idea. And I might pretend to like it, and I might not like it, but ultimately, I still want to hear it. Whereas in the UK, the first question is always, well, who are you, before the idea. Whereas in LA, it's always, what's the idea? Oh, right, okay, who are you? And that subtle difference makes all the difference.
Do you find, being a stand-up comedian, which I know you're much more than that, is there an attitude amongst other actors in terms of whether you're a real legit actor or not?
I think it's changed. I think there used to be. People would see you doing stuff and wonder where your process was and wonder why you were how you were, in terms of bringing kind of improvisation and a different energy to it, when some actors would look for rigor and consistency and quite sort of almost an academic approach. With comics, it's much more instinctive and in the moment. But I don't think so anymore. I think that's changed. I think there's a lot of great stand-ups. Look at John Bishop in the new series of Doctor Who. He's a wonderful stand-up and he's a fantastic actor. Jason Manford, brilliant stand-up, brilliant actor. It's now much more of a known quantity that stand-ups can make great actors, whereas I think 15, 20 years ago there would always be a little bit of doubt.
And there's always an attitude. I mean, when Billie Piper was a pop star, went into Doctor Who, she was, before she appeared, copped lots from the fans. I think Catherine Tate copped a lot beforehand too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you mentioned John Bishop, even Bradley Walsh.
Yes, he's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yeah, the highlight of the show, and lots of times.
Yes.
So, Miracle Day, was that going to always be the end of Torchwood? I know Russell's partner got sick, so that sort of ended his LA time, and he moved back to GB.
Yes. I don't know that it was. No, I think that that has become apparent over time that it has televisually ended. No, I don't think that was ever the plan. I think that they wanted to do another series, but then, as you say, more important things happened, like Russell's partner getting sick, and people moved on. So yeah, no, it wasn't the plan. No.
Okay, so 2013, you came to Big Finish for the first time, not doing Torchwood.
Was it 2013?
2013.
This is very interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
That was doing Vienna. So
sure.
So who approached you? You probably don't remember the show. Do you remember who approached you about coming and working for Big Finish?
I haven't got a clue. No, I think it was David. I think David Richardson, maybe. I can't remember. He'd remember. But I just got a call again. Got a call from my agent, and obviously leapt at the opportunity. And I love doing audio. I love the way they work. I love not having to put a costume on or makeup on. It's fun, and also where they do it, I'm sure guests have talked about this before. We often recorded, and hopefully will record in the future, at a place called Moat Studios with Toby, and you get a lot of time in the green room to bitch with the actors. I've had some of the best actor conversations in that green room. I was doing Doctor Who, and I talked to Paul McGann about Withnail and I. I mean, can you imagine what that's like to listen to someone talk to you about this iconic film? Withnail and I was when, for me, everything changed watching Withnail and I as a 15, 16, 17-year-old. And I'm sitting there and he's telling me how he got cast. He's telling me what Richard D. Grant was like. He's telling me about Bruce Robbins, all these things. So to go and do audio is obviously, it's a great acting experience, but also it's a great networking and social experience, and also culinary experience, because Toby at Moat Studios does the best food in the industry. So it's ticking a lot of boxes for me, and they pay me, unbelievably.
Would you do it for nothing?
Yeah, don't tell them that.
No, don't tell them that. Don't listen. So your first Torchwood back was with Eve Miles, More Than This. So that was in 2016.
Sure.
What's it like moving from television to audio?
Initially you're a bit sad about it, if I'm brutally honest. You do think a bit like, oh, I preferred it when there was cameras on a set and things I could do with my face. That's your initial thought, but that doesn't last very long. I mean, we're talking half an hour, and then you just think, God, I love this, and you get into it. And then also you start to realise when you're doing radio, you really rip through it. You can really get loads done in a day, whereas the great frustration with TV acting and film acting is how long it takes. It's very hard to concentrate enough to sort of jump back into this moment again and again, many, many times for all the different takes. Whereas when you're doing radio, you take a run up, you jump, and then you're moving on to the next thing. So works quite nicely for the way my brain works. I can really give everything to this one moment and make it really good. And again, know that it's good. Because something about when you're acting, there's always a doubt, is it going to work? And you have to wait to watch it. Whereas when you're doing radio, I find, when it's just an audio medium, I'll do it and I'll go, yeah, I've got that exactly right. Like, I'm really happy. So you do, I feel you get a greater satisfaction from it. With when it's TV and film, there's always an element of doubt. Is this going to work? How's it going to be shot? Is it going to look okay? Should I have pulled that stupid face? Why was my tongue sticking out? Oh my God, I blinked 6 times. Whereas when it's just audio, it's purer.
How do you prepare a script for audio?
I just read it like a fan. You just try and you forget that you're reading PC Andy lines. You just read it as if you were someone who loves the world. And I've always loved sci-fi. I grew up watching Star Trek and Quantum Leap. I've always loved the pure escapism of it. And you still get it when you read a radio script, that pure escapism. You completely believe in the world. And you just have to read it as a fan. And then you'd have to learn your lines. Surely that's the best thing about radio. No line learning. Oh, thank God.
Do you struggle to learn lines with your ADHD?
Yeah. God, it's a living hell. Yeah, it's a big problem because you're so. No matter how well you've learnt them, when you end up filming stuff, your brain is just firing off in 1,000 different directions. So to stay focused and concentrate, because anxiety triggers my ADHD a lot. If you're anxious and nervous, it makes it go 1,000 times higher. So yeah, you just have to learn it twice as well. You have to learn it ridiculously well.
Now, the first few things that you did was sort of ensemble with Torchwood. So you were doing the Outbreak, you were doing the Gods Among Us sort of things, but then the sort of 1 hour character pieces started, and those to me, I just adore them. They're I think small casts, super inventive, super different, and so they really take a different style. So you actually got your first starring one, where PC Andy goes on one called Ghost Machine.
Oh yeah.
Where you were the star, and actually only billed. Now they actually brought Samuel Barnett in to work with you.
Oh, I love Sam.
I was going to ask you, how's it like working with Samuel? Because he's ended up being, you and him have done lots together.
Yeah, I love him. We love working together. We're the same age. Something about being the same age, I guess. Yeah, he's very funny. He's very, very funny. Have you had him on this?
Not yet.
Oh, you must. He's a delight. Yeah, some people, you get the chemistry. I think I have it with Eve. I certainly have it with Kai. Where if you're planning a scene or a bit, it's not. You don't even need to talk much about what you're going to do. You just trust them, and you just start doing it, and you're just like, yeah, this is it, this is great, and you get better, and they get better, and it's this sort of virtuous circle. And I felt like that working with Sam. It just gets better and better, and we just have a really good laugh. And it's, some people take this job very seriously, and some people realise that this is fun. We're just playing. This is just an absolute, what a privilege. And Sam, despite all his successes, and he's done incredibly well, he's a brilliant actor. He just knows you're just having fun. You're just playing. You're just having a laugh, and he retains that a lot.
I think there's a reason they're called plays.
Yes, exactly. It's a big part of improv. When you're doing improv, they say, "Would you like to come and play with us?" If you want to do an improv show, come and play with us. And
the answer has to be yes.
Yeah, always
yes.
Yes,
and.
That's right. And he just remembers that. God, it's so important.
So the other person who's been cast a lot with is Bern Gorman.
Ugh, God, such a dick. Unbearable. That guy. Who does he think he is? Yeah, he's a delight as well. He's very funny, but very different energy to Sam. Oh, hello, can you hear that? You know what that is? That's the Monday morning leaf blower. Can you hear that? Obviously, we're in autumn.
Oh, yes.
And people don't use brooms anymore. So Bern Gorman and I wouldn't say we were best mates when we were doing Torchwood. We never had any scenes together in Torchwood when we were filming it. We never really saw much of each other, maybe at a rap party or whatever. Weirdly, he was in a play with Ralph Little years before Torchwood that was on before a play I was doing at the Soho Theatre. So we used to share a dressing room together. So I knew him a bit from then, but we were never really mates. But then doing the Big Finish stuff, we've just got on so well. Like, he's really funny. He's a deeply sarcastic, dry-humoured man. And he makes me laugh a lot, and I love what he does. I love what he does.
You'd never tell he was like that from the Torchwood extras.
No, I know. I'm not sorry. I'm not bringing anything new to the party here, but he's great.
Just briefly talk about Red Base, which was one of the ones that I loved in terms of you. It's set on. I'm not sure you remember the Red Base one. It's supposed to be set on Mars, but you just walk in with a uniform. And once again, this is the one where you are the star. There's PC Andy gets his whole episode. No sidekick in this one.
So finally, are you listening, Russell? Are you listening? Look what I could bring to Doctor Who. I can even do a Dalek.
When you get a script like that, how do you feel in terms of they've now throwing the whole show on you? You've got the whole disc to yourself. Finally, justice is here. Ghost Mission was probably supposed to be the same thing. It's just that Samuel Barnett ended up being so popular they kept bringing him back.
Dickhead. Absolute dickhead. So annoying. Your support, Samuel. You're number 2 on the cast list, my friend. How do I feel when that happens? I just honestly, I don't think about it too much. It's a bit like when I'm doing my live radio show. I don't think there are, whatever it is, 1 million people listening. I just get on with doing it. And it's a real cliche. Sorry to not be more interesting, Philip, but you take it a scene at a time and you just throw yourself into each scene. And if you think, oh my God, this is all on me, I hope I'm telling a compelling story here. I hope people like Andy. I hope people believe that Andy's scared. I hope people believe that he's feeling all these emotions. If you think like that, you get up in your head and you lose your mind. The thing to do is just take it a page at a time and go with it. And when you've been doing a character for as long as I've done Andy, it's just it's like slipping into an old dressing gown. It's lovely. It just feels very natural, and I just enjoy it. I just love it. It's just great fun.
Starbase dome breached. Terminal atmosphere leak. Mars is lost.
From Big Finish Productions, Torchwood, Red Base.
The airlock's closed behind me.
What's the weather like out there?
Just a balmy Martian morning. Heading towards the rock face now. You getting this?
We've got your feed.
And I'm taking samples now. What the hell?
Lee?
Stay back! You can't be here! You can't!
Lee!
Can you see this? It's impossible. He's not wearing a spacesuit. What are you doing here? This is Mars. No, stay back!
Good afternoon. Wondering if I could have a word. I'm from Torchwood.
Big Finish. We love stories.
Are you gonna kill me?
Go back to your room, crew member Andy. Sleep tight.
I actually listened to Red Base today to catch up before we started. And I mentioned the extras before, and the extras on that were quite interesting. You were much more concerned with being not on the cover of a Doctor Who CD than
they kept
the
that
actual
in.
red base.
Outrageous. Listen, I am. Sadly, my lawyers say I'm not allowed to talk about this. There are legal procedures happening. Tom Price versus Big Finish. They always put me right on the side just because they took a load of pictures with me very much in profile. So it's good if you're doing one of those big cast photos, I fit well on the end. Furious, livid.
So you've actually come into the main show now with Stranded, so now appearing with Paul McGann and doing the whole On Earth thing. Have you found much of a difference in terms of the style and feel going from a Torchwood into Doctor Who?
There are differences. Yeah, there are definitely differences. I think Torchwood is the naughty younger sibling, so it wants to be naughty and it wants to be more playful. Doctor Who, you feel the pressure of the brand a bit. I think people want it to work, but that sounds negative. It's not negative. It's just people take it slightly more. It's sometimes things are thought through a bit more, and ultimately though, it's still just telling great stories. And I think it's lovely bringing the Andy energy to the audio Doctor Who's. I think Andy shouting "Doctor" is one of my favourite things. Doctor, Doctor! I just love, like, the first moment I found myself doing that, I was just so excited. So good, It's just, God, it's so trite and cliche to say, but it is a dream come true, like, to be doing Doctor Who stuff. And to be able to do it from the comfort of my own home is an absolute joy. So, yeah, I mean, also I would say that with Doctor Who, there's often more going on. Torchwood, certainly the ones I've done recently, have become these slightly stripped down affairs, minimal casts, big ideas, people, more of a kind of intimate character study. Whereas Doctor Who, it's bigger. There's more stuff happening. There's more scenes with different people. So you just have to nail those scenes.
So have you been filming mostly from home? Recording mostly from home?
Yeah, sadly. I've done a few in the studio, and we're slowly starting to do more in the studio now, but yeah, mostly from home. And there's quite a few actors who live around here, and the other day there was a police helicopter, and it took out 4 actors, because we all live in North London.
With directors, you've obviously Ken Bentley's doing Stranded, you've got Scott Hancock does the Torchwoods mostly, but you've done some with Lisa Bauman as well. Do you notice any different styles with these directors? Is there anything you can pinpoint, or are they all pretty much the same?
I think they all bring different stuff. They all bring different stuff to the show. Some directors want to serve the story. Some directors want to serve you more, if you know what I mean. So Ken, for example, is always thinking about the story. And that is the most important thing. And
well, he's not an actor, is he?
No, but as a result, that can make you that can make your performance better, weirdly, because you are thinking the story is the most important thing, and suddenly, hey presto, if you're delivering lines with that in mind, it really, it does bring out the best in you. So that's you getting the end result is the same, but it's just a slightly different route. Whereas Scott will think about the character, will think about Andy a bit more. At least it's the same. I think. It's good to have people, Lisa does this, question what Andy's up to. Why is he doing that? And Lisa's very interested to hear stuff you want to do. If you're like, can we try that? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, would Andy do that? Okay, great. She's very, very enthusiastic and bouncy about that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's all different, but it all ends up sounding much the same, I hope.
Actually, listening to you and Byrne and Scott in particular, on the extras, I'm not quite sure how you actually get anything done. You sound like you're having too much fun.
Well, it's yeah. But often you hear those at the end of the day when we've finished, so everyone's a bit excited that we've finished. So everyone's just a bit like, and we've all been gabbling all day. So it's nice to be. It's often a release of pressure, because you do feel the pressure when you've got stacks and stacks of pages in front of you, and for budget reasons, you've got to get through this stuff in a day. So when you've done it, you're quite elated, and then they start recording the podcast, and you're like, yeah!
So last to be released was the Ashenden, so one more time to Torchwood Soho with Samuel. Are you really enjoying the opportunity to go back in the past and explore other facets of Andy?
Yes, I love. Well, I'm a big fan of as James Goss is as well. I love sort of London Second World War stuff. I'm really love all that stuff, and any kind of dipping back into the past is great. I've always been obsessed with time travel films and books and TV shows, and I think that Andy is always very good at doing a kind of wide-eyed wonder at stuff. So him doing that with time travel is a very neat fit. So yeah, I love doing that.
So have you got much more coming up in terms of recording? You're hoping to get back to studio soon?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you. I'm doing something. I am doing something.
So what's your hopes for the future? Where are you hoping to go personally?
Wow.
Professionally?
What? It's a huge question to end on, Philip. I really want to carry on doing stuff. I would love to try and write a Torchwood. That is something I really want to try and do next year. Keep on keeping on, really. I think to try and take Andy in new directions, to try and keep doing more of the Doctor Who stuff as well. I'd love to see Andy. Talking about Andy, I'd like to see him in a more domestic setup. I think it's an interesting thing. I know that he's had various relationships over the course of the shows, but I think it'd be quite fun to see him maybe have kids. Something like that could be hilarious. So that's what I'd like to see with Torchwood and Doctor Who. In terms of what I'm up to, just to keep writing really, and hoping that the podcast carries on growing, and keep looking out for those acting roles and all the usual bits and bobs really.
Great. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. We've really enjoyed meeting you. And
My pleasure.
You're our first Torchwood person, actually. So.
Oh, really? What an honour! Oh my God, they're not all as nice as me, just to warn you.
Well, I've heard that, so we started with the nice ones. We know it's all downhill from here.
Good. I'm going to tell them you said that.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The Eighth Doctor Adventures, Stranded 3.
I am on an alien planet.
Cup of tea?
We're on the edge of the known universe, and you're putting on the kettle.
Home comforts. Embrace it.
Like, I've seen extraordinary things popping up in the most ordinary of places. But now I'm here, in the most extraordinary place I've ever visited. I kind of just want to do ordinary things.
Are you sure this is a good idea?
I wish people wouldn't keep asking me questions like that. It's starting to get demoralising.
I don't want us getting complacent. That's a dangerous thing to become right now. Rhythm. Routine. That's what'll see us through.
All extraterrestrial phenomena are the exclusive property of divine intervention.
Something is wrong.
Run!
We'll take the TARDIS, and we'll take this place.
You will not, you vicious minx.
We're not settling the bill in a restaurant. We're playing with human history.
We're not playing. I take human history very seriously indeed.
That's the thing with time travel. Things change, and once they're changed, they stay changed.
Something came through the letterbox.
Down.
Big Finish. We love stories.
All right, Philip. So how was that? Our first Torchwood guest. Thank you so much, Tom Price, for coming on.
Yes, Tom, thank you for sharing and being so honest with us and just having a laugh. It was great.
Fantastic. All right, we might go straight into our recommendations, eh? What do you think?
That sounds a good idea. Whose turn would it be, Dwayne?
Let me just check. My note says... See, I've actually got it written in a notebook.
Excellent.
It is your turn.
My turn. Okay, I'll go then. I am going to recommend the podcast we were talking about on the show. My mate bought me a toaster. So it's Tom Price and comedians. He's getting a whole range of different comedians. I must admit, I don't know most of them. Coming from Australia, they're not Australian comedians. Those of you in the UK, I'm sure you would know a lot more of the names. I mean, there's some of them I know. And Julian Clary was the first one I listened to because I knew him. But it's just a chance for, as I said, Tom just gets them to send him his Amazon list and he just goes through what they've bought in the last 10, 15 years from Amazon, and it just starts a conversation. And the conversation just goes off everywhere. So it is very rarely on the item, but it's just a start-off board to going into having a conversation and having a few laughs. And it's very cleverly composed. Being comedians, they're all very quick-witted and they jump into ideas fast and they all affirm each other. So the conversation just goes really smoothly. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I hadn't heard of it before this week when I was doing some research. But yeah, my mate bought me a toaster on all the good podcast services.
Sounds great.
What about you, Dwayne? What are you going to recommend?
Well, I'd like to recommend a recent Torchwood release that doesn't feature Tom Price. Sorry, Tom. But I have to say, it's written by James Goss, who we've been singing his praises about, particularly his Torchwood writing this entire episode. And that was last month's release, The Great Sontaran War. It is my favourite Torchwood so far. There's only 2 months to go in the year. We've got one with Ace coming up soon at the time of recording. It'll be out by the time you hear this. I think it's coming out next week at the time of recording. But The Great Sontaran War is a James Goss written script featuring Dan Starkey as a Sontaran, and it is all set in a caravan park. Now, a Sontaran in a caravan park, that premise would make you think it is absolutely ridiculous. How can that possibly work? It is almost indescribable, Philip. You have got to hear it to believe it. It also stars Gareth David Lloyd as Yanto, and it is seriously the best Torchwood in a long time, and they're all pretty good. So I don't know if you agree with me on that, Philip, but I was just blown away by that story.
Yeah, I mean, this whole year has been amazing, but yes, a Sontaran with a pet cat in a caravan park.
Yes, pet cat.
And showing, yes, there were so many moments in which I laughed and laughed, but there's also a lot of pathos in it, and yeah, there's moments in which I got quite choked up. So it swings the whole gamut. As I was saying before, Torchwood just can do everything. This is more comedy, but it also has some major points to make as well.
Well, it's not just comedy, No. It's not just comedy. I came away not with feeling like my funny bone had been tickled like it was a laugh a minute, because it's not. It's not a laugh a minute. But I came away feeling, because Torchwood is often very, very dark and disturbing and it makes you feel a bit icky sometimes, I came away from this feeling very, very happy. And it's not often Torchwood does that. And so I can highly recommend this, The Great Sontaran War. Grab it. You won't regret it. Absolutely not. That is it. That's it for this time, Philip.
Excellent.
What could possibly be next?
Who knows? Whatever comes up in the order. So, marvellous night. Thank you so much, Dwayne.
Yes, and thank you for watching and listening. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, throw us a comment, and follow us on whatever podcasting app you are listening to us on. It's great to have you with us. So thanks for that. We'll catch you all next time. This has been the Sirens of Audio, episode 91. I'm on the cover somewhere with our special guest Tom Price and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by the Jackpot Golden Boys. Thanks very much for dropping some feedback for us if you're listening, and a like if you're watching. We really appreciate it. Our Facebook, Twitter and Instagram handles are all at Audio Sirens, and our website is sirensofaudio.com. And if you're stuck in the dark, unable to choose your next oral entertainment, perhaps a torch would help. Because audio drama rocks!